Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Nancy Hernandez, head of the Hispanic Collaborative. This is the second year that we are doing a briefing for Hispanic Heritage Month. And you might say to yourself, Hispanic Heritage Month ended on October 15th. You would be correct. And we are doing this because we believe that the Latino population here and elsewhere requires year-round attention. And so while we're outside of Latino Heritage Month, we want to share this data and information about the state of Latinos in Milwaukee with broader Milwaukee so that everyone can start thinking about Latino issues, our Latino population, and the contributions that we are making year-round. So thank you for joining us for the last component of our Hispanic Heritage Month events, which is this briefing. We will be posting the briefing on the website, so you will have a chance to view the deck and download the deck next week. That should be posted for you, so feel free to share that out and utilize the data. I will share that all of the data that we are showing today is from the most recent census reporting, which was through the year 2021. I will note that the data that you will see will not have 2022 data, 2020 data when you look at some of the trends, and that's because the census did not issue an ACS or American Community Survey numbers for 2020 because of the pandemic and not having sufficient information to put out. So census numbers will go from 2019 to 2021, and that is what we will be showing today. So let's jump right in. The Hispanic Collaborative, I always like to start with what is the Hispanic Collaborative? Those of you who have been working with us on a variety of different efforts know that we were formed in early 2019. Really, a community came together to understand the reporting that had recently been issued about the state of Latinos at that time over the past 2 decades, and wanted to address some of the negative trending variables and really how do we take advantage of our growing numbers. So the Hispanic Wellbeing Index is used. We cover 20 different variables that cover income, wealth, employment, health variables, and we compare how Milwaukee does against the top 50 metros. The first time that we did this event or this index was in 2016, where we were 39th against all 50 cities or all 50 metros. We're currently 44th out of all 50 metros. I encourage you to see our updated briefing that came out last year so you can understand a little bit about that, that differential and why we slipped from 39th to 44th and what we're doing about it. Our work is a play in increasing median household income via upskilling and reskilling. These numbers will reinforce why. And we look also at supporting variables such as education, Hispanic-owned businesses, and civic participation. If we increase those have a tendency to increase all other outcomes as well. So today's event, what we're going to do is we're really going to give you an overview of what's happening right now and in comparison to history of looking at the Latino population, are a few indicators of health, some indicators of wealth. We'll also look at workforce statistics as well as education, and this will give us a nice view with looking at these 5 variables of what the state of Latinos are today in a little bit of context. We think that this data shows, as well as the work that's being done across the board in Milwaukee and in Wisconsin, really, is that we're seeing a growing population and a more educated Latino population. And really, that helps contribute to a brighter future for everyone. But investment in quality and in upskilling are necessary in order to help fulfill what that potential is. So we think that this data will help reinforce that. So we're going to jump right into the data. I will share that if you have questions, please put those in the chat. And if we do have time at the end of the briefing, we will take some of those questions. But you will also have my email at the end of this briefing. Feel free to email me as well, and happy to provide you with any data or answer any specific questions you might have if some of it isn't answered in what we present. So the first piece that we're going to take a look at is our population numbers. Latinos in Milwaukee continue to grow. You can see this by the upward trend of these stacked columns, which represent the entirety of the Latino population in Milwaukee County. We are looking at specifically Milwaukee County today to give us a good idea of right here in our region what's happening with our Latino population. We have both strong numbers and pace of growth in under the 18 category. So that is the category that is on the bottom, the medium blue, if you will. And we have a strong increase in our under 18 category, which means that the trends that we see in growth here are going to continue and get stronger for decades to come. Over this time frame, 2010 to 2021, we have seen an increase of about 25,000 Latinos in the Milwaukee County alone, which represent about a 20% growth rate. Looking at a little bit more about that growth, we want to understand a little bit about the age makeup of our county. So it's clear that our Latino population is looking more and more Latino as we take into account this number, our percentages, with 35% of Latinos being under the age of 17 or under. And we compare that to what Milwaukee County overall makeup looks like, we can see that we outpace them by 12 percentage points. So while in any given number of 100 people in Milwaukee County, only 23 of them roughly, or 24, are under the age of 17, while with Latinos, it's 35, a little bit over 35 people are under the age of 17. So it shows you that as we think about future projections, as we talk about things such as voting and the number of people that turn 18 every year and can start changing that, the face of voting in Milwaukee, that Latinos are the biggest contributor to that because of our population. Our senior population is showing an increase as well, but we have much more given the age demographics of our population, still continuing to go into that largest category, which is 25 to 64, which is very important for our overall economics of the region, because that is really our key working age population. So in order for a region to grow, our working age population has to grow, and right now that growth looks Latino. Talking about also the makeup, I think is something that's important to everyone here on the call, is what does that population look like? And if we look at native-born population versus foreign-born population, we're showing you two columns here, one from 2010 and the one most recent from 2021. So you can see we've had an increase almost of 4% in who are native-born population or native-born Latinos here in Milwaukee. That number continues to change and will continue to trend upward in terms of the overall percentage of our population who is native-born versus foreign-born. As you can imagine, economic trends as well as the recent global pandemic have slowed foreign-born migration all over the United States, so that's a little bit of play in here. But more importantly is the number of Latinos that are having children, that are having families and continuing to grow. that is really contributing to the overall change in this percentage. And this is something that we will continue to see. The next section I want to talk about is we're going to talk a little bit about some indicators of health for our population, also exceptionally important if we think about the well-being of the home, if we think about being able to have quality and full participation in life. Health is an important measure for us. So we're going to look at two different slides here. One is health insurance. With health insurance is really the first gate to access to health care, which is important for our population. And we're looking at this in three different age segmentations. So if we think about under 18, our Latino population under 18, if we think about our Latino population in that 18 to 64 age range, and then we're going to look at our 65 plus. So that's how we split our information here. And you can see these graphs that go from 2010 to 2021, and there's a variety of different colors here, but what we're really looking at is in that under 18 and the 1864 age population, we have had an increase in the percentage of Latinos with health insurance. So we have seen an increase in our under 18, and we have seen an increase in our 18 to 64 population. And in that 18 to 64 population, we've seen a sizable change. So that's roughly gone from about 60% in 2010 of that adult population having health insurance to almost to 75% what we saw in 2021. Those are both positively trending. However, with our 65 plus population, our seniors, we're seeing that there is a decrease, a slight decrease in coverage. So that is that pink trend line that we're looking at, the red trend line that we're looking at. We're seeing a decrease for them. And most recently, we're seeing it over the 2019 to 2021. So understanding that sometimes in a given year, data might be most indicative of how the census was able to capture information. What we really want to look at is pay attention. Is that a trend that we're seeing that's maybe related to the effects of COVID that has had on our senior population, or something else that we might be able to reverse? Or might this be an anomaly and we will see that number come back up as we see some of these numbers bounce back and forth over the time frame? The other thing that we want to look at here is the number of Latino births. And I will share with you that before we take a peek at these trends, that Latinos here in Milwaukee County, or Latinas, we still have a very high rate of teenage pregnancy in comparison with our other 50 metros. That's one of the indicators, health indicators that we look at. So we are almost double that of the top metro in that area, actually a little bit more than double. And so there's a lot of opportunity there, period. But what we see here is there was over 2,200 Latinas in Milwaukee County that gave birth in 2021. And we're seeing, we presented two charts here because the way census looks at this is they separate out births to women who were married and unmarried women, clearly from a social perspective. Those are important numbers to the census to look at. And we added some linear trend lines here so we can kind of see how these graphs that bounce a little bit are trending. And so we can see that the percentage of births to married women is on the slight uptrend, even though our numbers are ending almost very similar in 2021. And the percentage of births to unmarried women is trending slightly downward. We found that interesting as we consider overall, the bottom trend shows you how many Latinas are married, what percentage of Latinas in our community are married. And one of the things that we can see is overall, the percentage of women who are married has been decreasing overall. That is the bottom graph and that bottom blue line. And the percentage of Latinas overall who are unmarried is obviously slightly increasing. So we're seeing births increase, and we're seeing those more of them coming to the married Latinas, even though that overall married Latina number is slightly decreasing over time. We're going to move to talk a little bit about wealth indicators, income and wealth. So here we're going to talk a little bit about homeownership. Homeownership, as you know, is as we think about generational wealth, as we think about economic stability for a family across generations, homeownership is a key piece to that puzzle, to that economic puzzle. And so we wanted to look at what's happening in terms of our Latino home ownership. So today, the percentage of homeowners that we have of Latinos is only 41%. Now that is far below what it is overall in the overall market when we compare Latinos to other populations. But more importantly for us, if we look at this over time, we have trended downward. So we've really gone from about a 43% to a 41% overall. You can also see that these columns are increasing, and so we've had a growth, a 42% growth in the number of Latino homes, obviously because we have more Latinos in the area, 25,000 to be exact, and all of those Latinos are living in different homes and need more homes to live in, and so while we have increased the number of Latino homes, we have actually gone backwards in the percentage of Latinos that own their own home. So that's an important piece for us as we think about wealth building in our community of how can we change this and create more Latino homeowners as an economic stability force within our Latino homes. The other thing that we wanted to look at here is household income, right? How much income is coming into that household? And so we look at what is the median household income. Again, we are looking at strictly the county. So the bottom darker blue line is our Latino community, right? And you can see simply by its position lower than the gray bar, which is the overall median household income, and lower than the lighter blue bar, which is specifically our white population here in Milwaukee County. We are below them by at least 5,000 in one case and almost 20,000 in the other case from a median household income. When you couple this with the data that Latinos on average have more people in the household, the amount of dollars available to support each person in the household then also become more diluted. So that's an important key part that plays a role with this household income numbers that we're looking at that we should keep in mind. So Latino median household income has increased over the last decade. We are specifically seeing a big bump in 2019 through 2021. I will say I'm a little cautious about that number. I would love to see how that trends out over time and where we come in with 2022 because I think given the pandemic, it would be more logical for that to be flat or below trend, but we're looking at 1 year numbers from the census because that's what was reported from 2021, so we wanted to compare apples to apples to apples in this case. So while Latino median household income has increased over the last decade, you can see the disparity with overall median household income has remained the same. Those two lines are parallel, which means that we're not gaining on that disparity with the other overall population in the county. And if you look at the trend lines of the white population versus the Latino population, they end up crossing, meaning that we are increasing our disparity versus our white counterparts. They versus decreasing or remaining the same. So this is a trend that we want to get a hold of. We want to not only continue to see the Latino median household income increasing, we want to see it as increase at a much faster pace so that we can catch up with our potential, which is more reflective of the opportunities that exist here and what our Latino population could be enjoying in terms of earnings trajectories. The next piece that we want to talk about here is workforce. I promise we will get through all these slides. We're almost done. So we want to give you a little bit about workforce and where our Latinos are working. So one of the things that we want to talk about here is employment levels. Here we also separated this out by looking at 16 to 24, or our youngest entrants into the workforce, that 25 to 64-year-old, which is really our working age population, and then 65 plus. And so we're looking at both who is employed and unemployed. Those two lines are what's considered being in the labor force, which are represented by the gray and the lighter blue lines. And then those that are not in the labor force for whatever reason are represented in the dark blue lines. So over this time frame, Latino has added about 2,000, a little over 2,000 workers into the 16 to 24 category, which represents about 19% growth. And then over 10,000 workers which is a 24% growth, in that main working age population 25 to 64 category. So the important piece for us to look at here is our percentage in the labor force. How many Latinos we have participating in the labor force is steady and strong. We see most of these relatively flat lines across what we're looking at. But it's also increasing in our youngest and oldest categories. So our 16 to 24s are have greater participation in the labor force than they did 10 years ago, and so do our 65 plus. So when we couple that with a picture of median household income and what's been happening there, it really points to necessity of looking at more income earners within the household, and that's something that we need to get a handle on from our Latino community and make sure that those are numbers that are positive for reasons not necessarily out of need, but out of desire to go back into that workforce. The other thing that we want to look at, and I know that this is an eye chart, but again, you will be able to download this full presentation and look at this data that we're presenting. If we look at the occupations where Latinos are working, this represents, we looked at broad categories, and what we're really looking at are the bold. If you look at the key, we're really looking at the bold pieces that I want to quickly talk about. So the top three on the chart are really where we are most concentrated, which are in low-skilled production, transportation, material moving, maintenance occupations, construction occupations, and sales and office occupations. That's where Latinos are most concentrated, and that represents over 50% of our workforce is in those categories. The biggest of which is in that production, transportation and material moving occupations. So a lot of low-skilled production type labor in our community. Over 50%, those top three. Sales in office has been declining a bit. And then our percentage of Latinos in food preparation and serving related occupations has also been declining as we look at over time. The number of Latinos going into computer engineering and science occupations, however, is slightly increasing. Now, that is a very small percentage of the overall occupations, but we did want to point to a few bright spots. As we also want to highlight that Latinos going into healthcare, both on the support side as well as practitioners and technical occupations, are also increasing, even though those remain small numbers. So those are trends that we really, especially at the collaborative, are really trying to look at of how do we help change the makeup of these slides in a very substantial way, so our Latinos can actually participate in more of these in-demand positions that are going to be much higher wage earning jobs for them. The last section that we want to talk about today is education. Very important piece for our Latino community. So we first want to talk about school enrollment. You can see over time the size of these column bars go up, and that means that more Latinos are enrolled in school, which makes sense. Our population, especially under the age of 17, is growing. We're looking here anything from nursery to preschool to postgraduate. And if we consider who's enrolled in school, we currently have over 50,000 Latinos in education, enrolled in education in some level here in the county. Now, just to give you an idea about size, the entirety of MPS right now has about 50 or 60,000 students in it. And so this is similar in size to something as big as we think about of MPS. Thinking about that, then, the quality of education and how are we moving folks from that high school level, which is the lightest blue, into those upper pieces, which are college and postgraduate work that includes that associate's degree, is important to us, right? So that K through 8 pipeline, leading into that high school pipeline, and can we start moving, can we impact those top, the makeup of our school enrollment and our education by ensuring from a quality perspective that those students are able to move into college and postgraduate work, because we have a lot of Latinos in that pipeline. If we think about our population 25 years and older, or our adult population, and how has the makeup of educational attainment changed, we have today the top two percentages that we're showing. 4.6 have postgraduate and 11.8 have a bachelor's degree. That makes up 16.4% of Latinos that have a college degree or higher in the county. But that still lags behind our white counterparts by 20%, so a lot of opportunity we have here as Latinos. And then I also want to point out the percentage below, which is that percentage of our adult population that has a high school diploma, or has less than a high school diploma. We have seen over the last decade that percentage drop from over 40% of our population to just under 30%, so 29.9, which is a really big swing in that decade. So a lot of positive movement in here, but we still have a lot of opportunity at the higher echelon to create more room for Latinos with college degrees, which will coincide with greater earnings potential for them and their families. So just in summary, because it is 12:30, a growing and more educated Latino population can make for a very bright future for our region if we think about harnessing the potential of our Latinos in our very youthful Latino population that is continuing to grow. But we do need investments in quality education, assurances that our group of Latinos is under 17 are going to have the best opportunities to participate, whether it's associate's degrees, four-year degrees, postgraduate work, or technical schools, and certainly upskilling as many of that 25 to 64 population to fill those more in-demand jobs and change the makeup of how that 50% of our workforce are in lower skilled, lower wage positions. Those investments are going to be a smart bet and a necessary step for us to see, to realize that potential that our Latino population has here. So I encourage each of you to reach out if you'd like more information. Um, I encourage you, all of you, to get more involved with some of these pieces, whether it's upskilling or some of these other tenets that the collaborative and other partners are trying to do. This is important work, and I hope this was insightful for you. And we look forward to hearing from you and bringing you more data and more information that you can use in your jobs and to share the word about how important Latinos are to our region. Thank you so much. We hope you have a good day.